To get a high score in IELTS listening, reading, writing, and speaking, you need to be able to understand and use idiomatic language, idioms. Does this mean you need to know phrases like let the cat out of the bag or there's an elephant in the room? No. In fact, these phrases will likely decrease your score. In this video, I'm going to show you the types of idioms that you need to know to boost your score. Now, before we get started and look at which idioms you need to know for IELTS success, I really recommend that you watch this video first. In this video on our E2 English YouTube channel, which is for general English, I take you through all you need to know about idioms, what they mean, where they come from, how you use them. It's a really important video. To watch it, simply search for E2 English Idioms on YouTube or click the link in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to E2 English while you're there. So, there's a lot of confusion about the use of idioms in IELTS. What I want to do in this video is quickly clarify what idioms are, because there are two main types, and then show you how idioms apply to each of the IELTS sections, especially how they apply to IELTS writing, which you'll find very surprising. So, the most well-known types of idioms in English are proverb idioms, such as to let the cat out of the bag, which means to ruin a surprise, or there's an elephant in the room, which means that there's an obvious unspoken problem, or skating on thin ice, which means to do something risky. I'm sure you've heard of these types of idioms, and I'm sure you know many more. So why are these idioms? Well, they're metaphorical. They're not literal. There's no actual cat in the bag or elephant in the room, and no one really skating on thin ice. These non-literal sayings have a second, figurative meaning. That's why they're idiomatic. And let me tell you an important secret about these types of idioms. Proverb idioms are unhelpful in IELTS and possibly dangerous for your score. You will never hear a proverb idiom in your listening test or see one in your reading test, and you have to be very careful if you want to use one in your speaking, and you should definitely never use one in your writing, as they're completely inappropriate, apart from perhaps IELTS General Writing Task 1 if you're writing an informal letter to a friend, but even then, they're unimportant. Just to be clear, don't use proverb idioms in your writing. That's key. Now, what I'm saying contradicts a lot of advice you get here on YouTube. Bad advice, unhelpful advice, even detrimental advice. Please be very careful who you listen to when preparing for your IELTS. Click that subscribe button for trustworthy IELTS advice from E2. And now, let me tell you about another type of idiom, a type of idiom that is critical for success in IELTS listening, reading, speaking, and writing. These are called idiomatic phrases. Here are some highly common idiomatic phrases which are essential for IELTS success. Kind of course, in terms of, in fact, deal with, at all, and so on. These are just a few examples of idiomatic phrases. But what makes them idiomatic? I mean, they're very different from letting cats out of bags and skating on thin ice. The reason is that they're also non-literal. I'm not going to go into detail here, you'll just have to trust me, but the phrases I just showed you are just as idiomatic as the proverb idioms, but they're way more important. If you haven't watched it yet, please check out the E2 English YouTube channel and watch the idioms video, where I explain in depth the differences between proverb idioms and natural sounding idiomatic phrases. Let's learn how idioms work in IELTS listening. You will very rarely, if ever, hear a proverb idiom in IELTS listening. You will, however, hear a lot of idiomatic phrases. And if you don't understand the figurative meaning of the idiomatic phrase you hear, then it will complicate your understanding of what's being said. Let's look at and listen to an example transcript from an official IELTS listening test that uses a lot of idiomatic phrases. Notice the idiomatic phrases in red.
The other thing I wanted to ask you was, did you find it hard studying with the Open University?
You mean because you're studying on your own most of the time? Well, it took me a while to get used to it. I found I needed to maintain a high level of motivation because it's so different from school. There's no one saying, "Why haven't you written your assignment yet?" and that sort of thing.
Oh dear.
You'll learn it, Paul. Another thing was that I got very good at time management because I had to fit time for studying around a full-time job.
Well, I'm hoping to change to working part-time, so that'll help.
What makes it easier is that the degree is made up of modules, so you can take time off between them if you need to. It isn't like a traditional 3 or 4 year course where you've got to do the whole thing of it in one go.
That's good, because I'd like to spend 6 months travelling next year.
It's all right for some. Then even though you're mostly studying at home, remember you've got tutors to help you, and from time to time there are summer schools. They usually last a week. They're great because you meet all the other people struggling with the same things as you. I've made some really good friends that way.
Sounds good. So how do I apply?
Wow, so you can see how common idiomatic phrases are in IELTS listening. And did you notice that there were no proverb idioms in there? There was no let the cat out of the bag or elephant in the room. No such proverb idiom. But in that short 1-minute audio, there were 19 idiomatic phrases. But how are idioms used in IELTS reading? Idiomatic phrases are common in IELTS reading, and proverb idioms are hardly ever used, if at all. Take a look at this paragraph taken from an official IELTS reading test. Can you see the idiomatic phrases highlighted in red? In this single paragraph, there are 5 idiomatic phrases, and again, no proverb idioms. In fact, in the entire reading passage, there were no proverb idioms at all, but there were about 50 idiomatic phrases. It's obvious which type of idiom is more important in IELTS. If you want high quality listening and reading practice materials and expert teachers who know what they're talking about, then check out E2 Test Prep. Get started by clicking the Start Free Trial button on www.e2testprep.com or click the link in the description below. Let's now talk about idioms in IELTS writing. This is really important. I want to be very clear. You should never use proverb idioms in IELTS writing, with maybe an exception for IELTS General Writing Task 1, where you write an informal letter to a friend, but even then, it's just not necessary and won't help to raise your score. If you're taking IELTS Academic, don't use proverb idioms at all. So, apart from that IELTS General Writing Task 1 informal letter, what sort of idioms should you use in Academic Writing Task 1 or General Writing Task 1 semi-formal and formal letters, and of course, Writing Task 2, the essay? Well, let's take another look at that list of idiomatic phrases that I showed you before. Do you notice anything interesting about these idiomatic phrases? You may notice that many of these phrases are unsuitable for written English. They're much more suited to spoken English. In fact, the only idiomatic phrases that would be suitable for writing from this list would be these ones here. These idiomatic phrases are common in IELTS writing. So, written English is much more formal than spoken English. So, A, you should never use proverb idioms in your writing, and B, you should be careful as to which idiomatic phrases you use in your writing. Take a look at this table. On the left side, you have the informal idiomatic phrases that are great for speaking. If you want to use them in writing, especially in academic writing and Writing Task 2, you should use the more formal equivalent. For example, the idiomatic phrase kind of is a little bit too informal for writing, so you should use somewhat. And deal with, in writing, you should say take action. Or make sure, in writing, you should write establish. Go through, undergo, come up, happen, go on, continue, get into, enter, figure out, solve. Now let's look at a high-scoring IELTS essay, an essay that would get an 8 or a 9, and let's see if there are any idiomatic phrases. I can't see any. That's not to say it's not possible or acceptable, but in this particular essay, there are no idiomatic phrases, and there are definitely no proverb idioms. So how can this be? How can a high-scoring essay have no idiomatic phrases? Well, let's take a quick look at the scoring criteria and I'll show you why. Here are the Writing Task 2 band descriptors. This is what the examiners use when they mark your writing. If we look closely in writing, there is nothing mentioned about idioms or idiomatic language. And here are the scoring criteria for Writing Task 1. Again, nothing mentioned about idioms. I could talk more about collocations and natural lexical features as a way to get a 9, but to put it simply, idiomatic phrases in writing are unimportant. You're allowed to use idiomatic phrases, and some of them are essential, as we saw before, but others need to be written in more formal, single words or phrases if you can. All right, what about idioms in IELTS speaking? You can use an idiom, proverb or two in your IELTS speaking if you want, but they're not that important. I wouldn't unless it happens naturally and spontaneously. Idiomatic phrases, on the other hand, are essential. They are as important or even more important than individual words. Take a look at the scoring for IELTS speaking. Look closely at lexical resource, which is another way of saying vocabulary. To get a top score of 9, it says use idiomatic language naturally and accurately. So I can see why some teachers encourage you to use proverb idioms while speaking. They've misinterpreted the meaning of this criterion and focused on the wrong type of idiom. Again, idiomatic phrases, not proverbs, are what you want to focus on in order to get a 9. And again, be careful who you listen to when preparing for your IELTS. I'd suggest only following E2 and IELTS Official, as there is some terrible advice out there. Let's listen to a couple of Part 3 questions from a high-scoring candidate who is talking about advertising. Listen to the natural sounding idiomatic phrases this candidate and the examiner use.
Do you think advertising is more influential now or in the past?
I think advertising is much more powerful these days, for sure. I mean, the internet allows companies to take advantage of users by tracking their clicks so they know exactly what you're looking for. You'll be looking at a website and all of a sudden there's a product that you've been thinking about. So yeah, I think advertising these days is far more intrusive and powerful than in the past.
Are you easily influenced by online advertising?
I'd like to think that I'm not, but I probably am. I mean, a lot of advertising works on your subconscious, so you don't even realize that you're being influenced to buy something. I try to do my best to avoid clicking on ads, but sometimes they're just too hard to resist. Before you know it, you're on some website checking the price of something you didn't even want.
So you can hear how frequent and natural these idiomatic phrases are in IELTS speaking. And as I showed you, they make up a lot of your speaking score for vocabulary, and for good reason. Your ability to use idiomatic phrases shows how natural your English is. Now, just so you're clear on what idiomatic phrases are, I just want to show you a few more. But please keep in mind that there are actually thousands more of these phrases in English. Be open to ideas, rule out, as for, fill in something or someone on something, be up to somebody or something, hold on, regardless of, account for, and so on. These are super important and incredibly powerful idiomatic phrases. If you want to learn more about them, then please check out and subscribe to our other YouTube channel called E2 English, where we will teach you all about them. Thanks very much for watching and keep practicing.